The Parliament has urged the Auditor General's Department to follow the law that governs the treatment of reports before they are submitted to the House of Representatives for tabling. Nationwide News understands that this was the basis upon which two reports were recently sent back to the Auditor General's Department by the Clerk of the Houses of Parliament without being tabled. Mahiri Stewart reports.
It's understood Parliament sent back the two reports to the AGD after House Speaker Juliet Holness was advised by Parliament's legal counsel that the department did not comply with a requirement for documents to first be sent to the responsible minister. The correspondence, which was sent on January 8, 2024 by Clerk of the Houses of Parliament Valerie Curtis to Auditor General Pamela Monroe Ellis, said the reports were not sent for tabling in the House in accordance with the provisions of the law. The reports are a special audit of the Financial Services Commission (FSC) and a special audit of Tax Administration Jamaica (TAJ). Section 30 of the Financial Administration and Audit Act (FAAA) says the Auditor General's report on examination and audit of any accounts audited pursuant to subsection 1 shall initially be submitted to the responsible minister for presentation subject to the requirements of the Act. The Act also says the responsible minister, upon receipt of the report, shall obtain the observation of the public body concerned on any matter which has been drawn by the Auditor General in the report and cause such observations to be presented to the House of Representatives together with the report. The Act says if the responsible minister does not, within 2 months of receiving the report, present it to the House of Representatives, the Auditor General shall transmit a copy of the report to the House Speaker to be presented to the House. A similar process for tabling Auditor General audit reports is recommended in Section 13A of the Public Bodies Management and Accountability Act. It's understood that Parliament has taken the position that no individual, agency, or department is above the law. It's also understood that as soon as the Auditor General's Department observes the provisions of the FAA Act, all reports will be tabled immediately. Mahiri Stewart for Nationwide News.
Member of Parliament for South Manchester, the JLP's Robert Chin, says he intends to visit the office of the Integrity Commission today to resolve a matter which resulted in him being publicly summoned by the Commission. His statement comes following the IC's notice in the newspapers asking him to report to the office. The notice, which was circulated widely on social media, indicated that Mr. Chin must visit the Commission's office by Wednesday, March 27. In a statement, the Member of Parliament says he has been in touch with the Integrity Commission over the last few months in relation to requested financial statements for companies of which he's a director. He says the requested statements have not yet been completed by the company's accountants and as a result are still outstanding. The South Manchester MP apologized to the Commission for not providing an update sooner. Director of the Jamaica Society for Industrial Security, JSIS, Major Richard Rees, has thrown his support behind the latest adjustment to the minimum wage for industrial security guards. Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced the increase to the national minimum wage during his contribution to the budget debate last Thursday. Abigail Bartley reports.
Effective June 1, the national minimum wage is set to move to $15,000, up from $13,000. Industrial security guards will also see an adjustment to their wages from $14,000 to $15,000 per 40-hour work week. Major Rees says while he supports the latest increase to the minimum wage, he's yet to see whether there will be any changes to the insurance benefits for security guards.
The JSIS and the security industry as a whole supports improved remuneration for its officers, and although we have not received the detailed narrative or gazette based on the Prime Minister's presentation, we would generally support the increase in terms of their remuneration. We are not, however, informed as to whether there is any change in terms of the premiums that are associated with security officers, neither are we appraised of any increases in the insurance. So as to impact, we are not in a position yet to determine that until we get those better particulars.
Major Rees also notes that unregistered security companies operating across the island are still a cause for concern.
We of course know that on the other hand, our customers, they would have been still recovering from the increases associated with the court ruling and then the subsequent significant increase in June of the minimum wage last year. But that aside, the issue really is that there are a lot of unregulated or unregistered companies operating island-wide, and we would have hoped that the PSRA and the other government agencies would have, devised a special strategy to address that.
Major Reese says the relevant authorities must now focus on ensuring that illegally operated security companies fall into compliance with the Private Security Regulation Authority Act, PSRA.
As you have these increases, you have the illegal operators increasing, and the regulators seem to just focus on those who are registered. I guess we're easily identified and we're compliant. So we're hoping that the relevant enforcement arms will focus now on the unregistered entities who would not be compliant with the minimum wage and the other provisions of the Act and, of course, the PSRA Act.
Abigail Bartley for Nationwide News.
Local environment watchdog, the Jamaica Environment Trust JET, is welcoming the move by the government to increase the fines for environmental pollution. During his contribution to the budget debate on Thursday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness acknowledged that fines for polluters and, in some cases, rogue developers are ineffective. Mr. Holness pointed out that under the Natural Resources Conservation Authority (NRCA) Act, the ceiling is $50,000 for a breach, while under the Wildlife Protection Act, the ceiling is $1.5 million. Under the newly proposed penalties, the fine would be $5 million for individuals and $10 million for a corporate body. The Chief Executive Officer of JET, Dr. Teresa Rodriguez Moody, has applauded the move to increase the fines.
The Jamaica Environment Trust welcomes a move for increased fines. This is indeed something that we've been calling on for many years, and these are promises that have been made for many years as well. So we're happy to see that the fines are going to be increased and significantly increased. The question that some are asking, is it enough? I think it could have been higher, especially for corporate bodies, but I think it's a step in the right direction, and it is something that is long overdue.
Meanwhile, the JET CEO is raising concerns about the ability of the government to enforce the new penalties. Dr. Rodriguez Moody is questioning whether there are enough human resources at the National Environment and Planning Agency NEPA to go after polluters.
Importantly, as we increase fines, what needs to come along with that is enforcement. And so that is something that has been an issue. We've been hearing the National Environmental Planning Agency say that they have issues in the sense of not enough enforcement officers and so forth. So I think it's important that we hear how there will also be some changes with regards to enforcement to go hand in hand with the increased fines.
Dr. Teresa Rodriguez Moody, the CEO of the Jamaica Environment Trust, JET. Meanwhile, JET is also in support of the proposed ban on the release of effluent into the Rio Cobra in St. Catherine. This was another move announced by the Prime Minister during his budget presentation. While supporting the policy, Dr. Rodriguez Moody is questioning how the move will be enforced.
It's a good move, but the Rio Cobra and its tributaries is massive. So it begs the question, how will this be done if we already have a challenge enforcing the existing situation, the existing organizations that are allowed to discharge? How will this be managed? How will enforcement take place? So while it is again a step in the right direction, there is the question of how we're going to manage this. But additionally, the Rio Cobra is only one river, and it is an important watershed. But what about our other rivers? What about our other important watershed? We shouldn't just be reacting to the issue of the Rio Cobra just because of the repeated incidents of pollution.
Dr. Teresa Rodriguez Moody, the CEO of JET. Now 12 people have been killed in road crashes across the island over the past 13 days. The latest fatality occurred on Sunday after a man succumbed to injuries he received in a two-vehicle collision on the Winston Jones Highway in Manchester. His identity has not yet been released. According to the Island Traffic Authority, between March 12 and March 22, 11 people died in road collisions. The youngest victim was a 6-year-old boy who died from injuries sustained in a crash at Mountainside in St. Elizabeth last Thursday. The fatalities have pushed the number of lives lost since the start of the year to 93. That's 8 fewer than the 101 recorded over the corresponding period last year. The authority also recorded an 8% decline in road crashes since January. Pedestrians account for 18% of road users killed. Motorcyclists make up the majority of the fatalities with 40%. The Island Traffic Authority says the leading cause of road fatalities continues to be excessive speed with no regard to road conditions. St. Elizabeth registered the most road fatalities with 12. Attorney at Law Dr. Marcus Goff says the government's decision to assist a group of Haitian orphans is a step in the right direction but does not signal a firm shift in the government's approach to asylum seekers. Dr. Goff says assisting the orphans is a good move in light of the escalation of violence in their home country.
So it would seem that due to the mounting situation there and visibility of the issue, that the government has decided to, after a long time of postponing approving it, to now approve the orphans coming, So I think that certainly it's a good move. I mean, many Haitians are in jeopardy of losing their lives, in what's currently happening in Haiti, and so any number that we can accommodate, safely, then we certainly should do so.
However, he maintains that the government's current approach to asylum seekers needs to be entirely consistent with the nation's obligations under international law.
We still don't see that being a shift towards properly implementing Jamaica's obligations under international law to facilitate a transparent process where persons who are fleeing can come properly screened, be enabled to make an application for asylum and to be processed according to law. That's what we still don't see, nor any commitment in that regard.
Dr. Goff also notes that the group of 37 Haitian migrants who arrived in Jamaica last July are anxious about their potential return to Haiti. He's appealing to the government to afford the migrants asylum amidst the increasing conflict in the country.
Emotionally, they are feeling very vulnerable, to the uncertain future and the prospect of being sent back to what, as I say, the escalating crisis. So I think even while the government, has meeting with CARICOM leaders and trying to find solutions, is in the same breath that the 37 persons there have been refused applications for asylum here. Having been here since July last year, the sent back in the face of what we know is certain trauma would really be devastating to them personally, and to Jamaica's image internationally.
That's Attorney at Law Dr. Marcus Goff. In international news now, Donald Trump has just a few hours left to prevent the seizure of his assets in a business fraud case that threatens his fabled property empire. A deadline for him to pay the $464 million penalty for inflating his net worth is due to expire on Monday. If he fails to either secure a bond or delay the process in court, the authorities in New York State can freeze his bank accounts or target his properties. A separate legal threat to the former president also takes shape later. He may be given a date for his first criminal trial at a hearing in New York in the so-called hush money case involving the adult film star Stormy Daniels. Mr. Trump is expected to attend in person to hear his lawyers argue that the case should be dismissed due to the recent disclosure of thousands of documents about a key witness. In the fraud case, he may yet receive a lifeline from a New York appeals court that is considering his application for a stay on the judgment. Last week, his lawyers said he had been unable to cover the penalty despite approaching numerous financial companies to provide a bond. To secure a bond, an individual has to demonstrate to the company that they have enough liquidity, usually in the form of cash or stocks. If Mr. Trump secured a bond on Monday, it would protect his assets while he continues his appeal.